When Quinones took the stand, Nyberg went to work.
There was testimony from him that he had seen a lion in the woods. Now, nobody believed there was a lion in the woods. But I said to Mr. Quinones, Mr. Quinones, was there a lion in the woods? And he said, absolutely not. Then I said to him, but didn't you hear that there was a circus in town and a lion escaped from that? He said, you mean the lion was really there?
Quinones' own words had mauled his credibility. On the stand, things went from bad to worse. He revealed he was more than just an unreliable witness.
On cross-examination for the first time, he admitted that, in fact, just prior to the killing, he had taken part in an attack on the victim where he kicked and punched the victim along with Kasso and Troiano.
And just when it looked as if things couldn't get any worse for the prosecution, they did. Quinones totally contradicted his prior statements to police. He now testified that he was positive that Jimmy never chased or held the victim down during the fatal stabbing. Despite the conflicting testimony of his star witness, the prosecution remained optimistic about their chances for success.
There comes a point at the end of the case when the judge asks both attorneys, do you want a down charge? Do you want something less charged to the jury, such as manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide? And myself and the homicide squad took the position that it was murder or it was nothing.
In what was perhaps a twist on the tale of good versus evil, Eric Nyberg made his closing statement to the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, I humbly and respectfully submit that only God Almighty knows or will ever know what happened that night. That if Jimmy Troiano or Albert Quinones deserve to be punished, it is the Almighty who must make that decision.
After 3 tense days of deliberations, the jury returned with a verdict in the so-called Satan trial. For the second-degree murder of Gary Lauwers, Jimmy Troiano was declared not guilty. As quickly as it began, it was all over. Outraged and confused, the town struggled to understand what had just happened.
I was surprised by the decision of the jury. I didn't understand it. We thought it was a pretty sure thing.
Drugs had been indirectly responsible for taking Gary Lauwers' life, and now their effect on the human mind was directly responsible for the trial's outcome. For many, it seemed that Satan was alive and well in Northport. In his name, the town had suffered one brutal murder, one suicide, and now the court decided that no one was responsible, except maybe for the devil himself.
In nomine Dei nostri Satanas Luciferi excelsi. In the name of Satan, the ruler.
A dark force had descended upon the village of Northport, causing Gary Lauwers' brutal murder. The crime went unnoticed and unreported, and ultimately, it went unpunished. Ricky Kasso said the dark force was the devil himself. Black birds that night told him that Satan blessed his crime. And Ricky, to honor his master, told his victim to declare his love for Satan. The Satan connection had quickly taken on a life of its own. The murder was seen as a ritual sacrifice, but many considered it just the tip of the iceberg.
The whole idea of Satan worship in a suburb being conducted under the nose of adults by their own children was truly horrific for many people.
Ricky became fascinated with Satan in an unlikely place, the Northport Public Library. Ricky wandered in one day and found himself drawn to some books. They turned out to be books on Satanism. It was as if everything within those pages was already inside his head.
I think it was a progression with Ricky with Satanism. He thought it was interesting, and then it got more intriguing to him. I remember times walking down the street, and he would walk by certain places and say, "Hail Satan."
Ricky worshipped Satan in his own way, although formalized practice has been around for centuries. The Church of Satan, located in New York City, purports to have several 100,000 members worldwide.
The attraction of Satanism is that it's the first religion in the history of the Western world to accept man as he really is. He's a carnal animal, a beast, and it is something to be exercised, not exorcised.
To its followers, Satanism is about celebrating man, not worshiping the devil.
Satan, thy strength is mine. Drink in honor of your true nature.
Satanists claim they don't even believe in the devil per se.
In nomine Dei nostri Satanas Luciferi excelsi.
Satan as a word has significance in many different contexts. In a Christian context, it's one of absolute evil and opposition to their God who represents absolute good. To a Satanist, Satan means adversary or opposer, which is the original meaning of the word, and we are the opposers of all who would try to make man spiritual rather than carnal.
To those who have seen the effects of Satanism firsthand, it's not quite that harmless.
For someone to say that Satanism or worship of the devil is something good is absolutely preposterous.
Come forth from the abyss.
Because the devil is evil incarnate, and Satanism, the worship or the honoring of Satan, is honoring not anything good, but everything that's wrong, everything that's evil.
Ricky Kasso needed something to believe in. Satan provided a degree of moral freedom irresistible to an aimless young kid living on his own, making his own rules.
The attraction to satanic activity, the attraction to the devil, basically comes down to power. The devil will come and promise great power to anyone who follows him. And in doing that, the person doesn't know the price he's going to have to pay.
I love you, Satan.
Ricky used Satanism to pull a collection of Northport's disaffected youth into his circle. The kids went along for the ride because Ricky supplied the drugs that made it seem worthwhile. But Ricky's brand of Satanism came not from the tenets of organized Satanists, but from the world of music videos. Ever since Charles Manson touted the influence of the Beatles' Helter Skelter in 1969, rock music and Satanism have celebrated a marriage made in hell. And while Manson sought his inspiration in rock and roll took a page from Manson. Heavy metal music thrived on death imagery and, ultimately, satanic references. Real Satanists couldn't compare with the new breed of recording artists. For a generation raised on music videos that projected heavy metal imagery, Satan struck a chord with a small number of teenagers across the country. Satanism was a quick and scary-sounding buzzword. Satan had polished up his image and gone mainstream to preach platitudes at the church of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The kids, with nothing else to do with their time, bought it.